In today's tutorial, we're going to be talking about how you can unlock your core's potential. We're going to look at 5 exercises and we're going to look at the different components that make up core training so you get a complete core strength, endurance, stability, and so on. If you want to build core strength and stability, please do click the link in the description and you'll go through to my How to Build Core Strength and Stability online 12-week program. Exercise 1 and component 1 is a side plank for endurance. Now, we need to build the core. We don't just build core strength, we don't just build core stability, we need to build all these different components. Number 1 is core endurance, and we use the side plank because when we come down into this position and hold, it gives us the ability to challenge the muscles over a prolonged period of time. Now, when we talk about the posture of the side plank, we essentially want what I describe as the straight lines, which is a straight line all the way down the body, straight line coming up through the body as well. Now, obviously, when we do the right hand side, we're challenging the lower part of the body, so the right, but also we get a little bit of the rectus abdominis, and then obviously when we go to the other side, we're getting the left side of the body as well. So we're challenging right side, left side, and we're getting a portion of the middle part of the torso. Now, there are other exercises that we can use, but what we're going to try and do with this 5 is look at a complete set. So for exercise number 1, it's the side plank. We're building endurance, and how we can do that is, 1, we can just hold for time. So we can just come into this position and we can just hold straight away, 30 seconds, minute, 45 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever it is. The longer you can hold, the more endurance that you have. If you can't hold, say, 30 seconds and you want to build up to that, there's a very simple way of doing it. Number 1 is you can come down into a kneeling side plank and hold there. It's not quite as hard, but it can be just as effective and allow you to come up into that full side plank. If you get to the full side plank, so you've done a bunch of kneeling side planks, you get to the full side plank and you still find it difficult, what you can then do is build it up in blocks. And I just use 10-second blocks. Nice and easy to remember, nice and easy to time. So you do a 10-second block, rest for 5 seconds, 10-second block, rest for 5 seconds, 10-second block. So what you've then done is hold a side plank for 30 seconds. You've just put 2 5-second rests in between. So it's as simple as we come up into position, we hold for 10 seconds, then we go down for 5. You can either do this on a timer or you can obviously count the 5 in your head, and then back up, and then you'd hold for 10, come back down, back up, hold for 10. So with regards to this exercise, it's the side plank. We've got right side and left side with portion of the middle or anterior part of the torso. So that's what's being worked. What we've then got is how we go about performing it. Essentially the straight line down through the body, so we don't have the hips hiked up or sagging. We want nice straight line, and also if you look at me from, let's just say, my head downwards, you want a nice straight line going through the 2 shoulders as well to keep you nice and vertical. Then obviously we're building endurance, we want to build the time up, and there's ways of doing that. We can start kneeling. Once we get into the full side plank, we can then hold 30, 40, 50, 60, 90 seconds, whatever it may be. But if you're having trouble getting up into the full side plank, you can build it in those blocks of 10 seconds with a 5-second gap in between until you can hold it for a full 30 seconds on its own. Exercise number 2 and component number 2 is the pull-off press, and it's strength. Now, strength is about holding holding a load, an initial load. So what we want to be able to do is a heavy load, but it doesn't have to be for a long period of time. Now, obviously we do need some equipment for this. I'm going to be using a cable machine with the handle on it. So what happens with regards to the pull-off press is we come out into this position. Now we're holding strong. When I have my hands in like this, you can feel the weight because it wants to pull you back in. But with regards to the tummy working, it's not a huge amount. So what we then do is we push the weight away. Now when we get further away and the lever's longer, that's when it starts to get harder. So that's when we can get huge amounts of load going through the torso, very quickly, and again, we don't have to hold it for time. Now again, we can hold it for time and have endurance, but we don't have to and we don't need to. If we are just looking for core strength, what we want to be able to do is essentially lift the heaviest weight possible. Now, when it comes to the technique of it, we come into this position. Now what I will tend to do is I will tend to have the hand that's closest to the cable on the handle, the other one supporting it, and then hips back, slight bend of the knees, and then I'm up, and then I'm pushing away. And then you can come back, push away, come back. When the weight gets further away from you, it's going to want to pull you around, it's going to want to pull you back in, it's going to feel that much harder. So that's one way of performing it. Now again, we don't need to do huge amounts of reps on this because we are looking at strength. If we were doing endurance, we would build that up and we would have more reps. But there are also other ways of performing it. So you've got, as I've demonstrated, you've got this one, holding it, pushing away, coming back, pushing away, coming back. If you want to make it a little bit harder, you can just simply go away, hold for 5, and come back. So again, we don't need to do massive amounts of reps with this because we are looking at strength. We just want to be able to lift the heaviest load possible. Now, with regards to what that's doing to the torso, is it's working predominantly the front part of the torso, but what it's also working is your ability to resist the rotation. So why it's so good for strength, obviously we've got the heavy load, but then what the torso's got to do is stiffen and hold everything in really tight so you don't fold back in. So it's then giving your body the ability to hold that position, to hold that posture. So when it comes to doing the pull-off press, the best place to start is with the reps, because this is slightly easier because it's tough, then it gets easy. Then it gets hard, then it gets easy. What we would then do, once you've built up an ability to hold that, what we would then do, push away, hold for maybe 5-6 seconds, and then come back, and then that will be that much harder. The other thing to do with this exercise, because I'm facing this way, is working a little bit more on this side of the body, but mostly on the front. I would then turn around and then I would work on the other side of the body, but again, mostly the front, just to keep things balanced. So for core strength, we want to be using the cable machine and the pull-off press. How we perform it is we go slight hinge of the hip, slight bend of the knee, hold the weight in close. To make it slightly easier, we hold close, then far away, then close, then far away, then close, then far away. One thing I will say with that is when you're lifting or when you're pressing the weight away from you, the stack that you can see there, as I push, shouldn't really move. It should stay nice and still, because what we're not doing is a press like that. It's push out and come back. Then, to make it harder, we then go out into a static hold. But the main thing with this, we're not looking to do lots of reps and we're not looking to do a static hold for a long time. We want to get the weight up as high as we can to build the strength. Exercise 3 and component 3, we're going to be doing a half kneeling halo for core stability. Now, we need a kettlebell or a weight of some kind. And what we're going to do, we come down onto one knee, so that's our half kneeling position. The next thing that we need to do is pass this weight around the head. Now, why is this doing core stability? Because core stability is very different to what people think it is. Stability is about muscle timing. There is an element of balance in it. There is an element of smoothness of movement in it, because it's about muscle coordination. So what we're doing is we're using this weight to offset the center of gravity, to be able to get the muscles recognizing that if you drop to one side, you need to come back up. If you drop to the other side, you need to come back up. But basically what should happen, if you've got good stability, you will maintain proper posture and a smoothness of movement all the way around. So what that means is if you're a bit sort of like jolty and you can't really get the weight, that would be described as unstable. What we're looking for is nice smoothness of movement all the way around. That's saying that the torso is stable, the spine is stable, and that I'm able to get the weight around nice and easily. If it's jerky, then we've got a lack of stability in the area that we need to iron out, if you will. So we perform it by going around the head. Now, as you can see, foot and knee, there's a little bit of a gap, so that is a very stable position as I go around, like so. Very stable, very easy. Come in a bit narrower, gets a little bit harder. I've got to think about things now. And then again, I come in on a tightrope, foot in front of the knee. Now you can start to see, I'm starting to concentrate, and there you can start to see the instability start to creep in. So that is how we would go about, and again, this is just one exercise for core stability. Again, this isn't about the weight that you're lifting, it's about the control through the muscles. So again, you would start light, you would start wider. As you get more confident, you can increase the weight. This is an 8 kilo kettlebell. You can increase the weight and bring the knees into what I describe as a tightrope. So you can go from tram lines to a tightrope. Again, that's there to build the stability in the muscles, the timing of the muscles, and the smoothness of their contracting and relaxing state that will give you the core stability that you need. Exercise 4 and components 4. We are looking at plank with an arm raise, and then we're doing strength and stability. So now we're starting to combine them together. So why would we want strength and stability? So we're under load, we are stable. We're not wobbling all around. So we may be able to create a lot of tension and hold a position, but it's on a shaky foundation. So what we would be looking for is we come down into the plank position, and then we would lift an arm up. So the strength, when you do this exercise, you can feel the torso compress around the spine and around the abdomen. So that's the strength element to it. The stable part to it is the hips not shifting around. If you've got centered hips, we've got stable hips, which is going to give a stable torso, stable spine and a stable torso as a whole. So what we then need to be able to do is come into this position, lift up, pop back down, lift up, pop back down. Now again, I'm keeping my hips centered all the way through, maintaining the strength, integrating the torso into the hips, but also keeping it stable, keeping the muscles under control and holding the hips nice and centered. How we make it easier, the obvious one is to go down into a kneeling plank. So plank on the knees, and then you can do exactly the same. Hold. It's much easier in this position, but for some people that would be the place to start. So we would start on the knees. We would then come up onto the feet. Now it may only be that you do a couple of reps, because again, we're talking about strength. We just want that load going through the torso, but we want to do it in a stable way that the hips stay centered. When we come up onto the feet, there is a way of making that easier. And basically, elbows come close together, feet go wide apart. That gives you a stable base. So we go into this position, so get your elbows as close together as you can. Hold here and up. What you then start to do as it gets harder, or to make it harder, is you bring the arms apart, and that just makes the hips and the torso work that much harder to hold that position. And what you'll start to notice is the tension in the core going from the center to one side to the other side to center to one side to the other side to center. So we're starting to get a dynamic element to it. But with regards to core strength and stability, perfect way is to use the plank and the arm raise. Why is it doing it? Creates tension around the torso, which is the strength, but also when we lift an arm up, it wants to cause the hips to move, which creates stability when we keep them centered. And then we've got our ways of making it easier and harder, starting on the knees, coming up then onto the feet, keeping the elbows close, feet wide, and then basically, to make it harder, we take the elbows wider, we take the feet narrower, and that makes it that much harder. But that is your exercise for core strength and stability. Exercise number 5 and component number 5 is round the world with a kettlebell, and what we're now starting to do is create a dynamic torso. This is again another part that a lot of people miss. When we want to do core exercises, we want to make them dynamic, because what happens is as the weight moves, so does the load going through the torso. So we need to knit everything together with this movement. So what we would do to perform it is we would stand up in position, hold it in front. What I'd recommend, one hand at one side, one hand at the other side. Just makes it easier when we come around the back and change hands. Because what we're not doing, if it stays in the center, just readjust my hands. If your hand's in the center, you can't hold onto it and you've got to move your hand out the way to get onto it. It just makes it more awkward. So hold on to either side of the handle and then pass it around. And what you'll notice is as you pass it around, you'll notice the torso, or the load going through the torso, change position. And then as you go the other way, again, you'll feel that load. So what you're then doing is you're knitting all these exercises, knitting all these muscles in the core together to make it a more complete core strength, stability, endurance. Because we've got it, because as we move through sports and everyday life, we're moving. The torso needs to be able to move that load as well without it being a problem. If we can do that, we're going to be in a much better place. Now this is a 20 kilo kettlebell. How we make it heavier, how we make it harder is simply make it, well, number one, make it heavier. Number two is move it faster as well. What a lot of people can do is sort of come into this position. They're sort of passing it slow. It's hanging off their arms like so. So you can make it heavier, that's one. But if we sort of come into this position, pull tight, hold on tight, bend of the arms, move it nice and fast, you'll notice how much harder it becomes. The other thing is to keep the body solid. So what we also don't want to be doing is that, because again, that's a compensation and that's not the body managing the load going around it. So it would be holding tight around, keeping the shoulders level, passing the weight around. And then you would go 6 round one way, 6 round the other way, 8 round one way, 8 round the other way, however many reps you want to do. So that would be how to build a dynamic core using the round the world exercise. Many thanks for watching. Hopefully that's been helpful. Hopefully it's given you, well, 5 exercises that you can do to build essentially a complete core, a very robust core that gets in all the nooks and crannies and gives you the core strength, endurance, stability, and strength and stability that you need.